Welcome back to Hardball. Illinois Tea Party Congressman Joe Walsh, best known for calling the president a liar, finds himself under fire for comments he made Sunday about his opponent, Iraq War veteran Tammy Duckworth. Walsh suggested she's not a, quote, true hero because he says she discusses her military service too much. Duckworth was a Black Hawk pilot who lost both her legs after her helicopter was hit in 2004 and later went on to serve at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Here are Walsh's comments caught on camera by Think Progress. He begins by talking about John McCain's campaign in 2008 and moves to his opponent. Let's watch.
But understand something about John McCain. His political advisors, day after day, had to take him and almost throw him against a wall and hit him against the head and say, Senator, you have to let people know you served. You have to talk about what you did. He didn't want to do it, wouldn't do it. Day after day, they had to convince him. And finally, he talked a little bit about it, but it was very uncomfortable for him. That's what's so noble about our heroes. Now, I'm running against a woman who, my God, that's all she talks about. Our true heroes, the men and women who served us, it's the last thing in the world they talk about. That's why we are so indebted and in awe of what they have done.
For more on this, let me bring in two veterans of the Iraq War, former Congressman Patrick Murphy and chairman of VoteVets, Jon Soltz. Mr. Soltz, how stoked are you about this?
I don't know if I'm stoked. I'm kind of hurt. Look, if you look at the video, the worst part about it, I don't know if you caught it at the end, but there was people in the audience that were laughed.
Yeah, they chuckled. I did just hear that.
Really, look, I served 2 tours in Iraq. I've been home 6 to 8 months. It's the hardest part in the 6 to 8 month time period. It's hurtful. We're not even asking this Congressman Joe Walsh to apologize anymore. We've been in a battle with him for a long time. He at first said to a Politico reporter several months ago that all Tammy did was get shot out of a helicopter. We later found out that he challenged Tammy Duckworth to a debate. At the same time, she was at military duty, and now this. And so I think he's had a long track record of sort of insulting her service. And to her credit, at some point, she actually doesn't oversell her service. John McCain may have written 2 books about serving in Vietnam, but Tammy Duckworth has yet to really even talk about her service. To be frankly honest, VoteVets talks about it. We did it. We have an emailer out right now about this. It's raised, $20-some thousand just for her in small donations. So it's appalling and it's hurtful.
In an interview with Politico in March of this year, Walsh said this of Duckworth: I have so much respect for what she did in the fact that she sacrificed her body for this country. Now let's move on. What else has she done? Female, wounded veteran, She's nothing more than a hand-picked Washington bureaucrat. David Axelrod, Rahm Emanuel just picked her up and dropped her into this district. Patrick Murphy, your thoughts?
Michael, let me tell you something. Every day there are 18 veterans in Iraq, Afghanistan wars. When they come home, they try and commit suicide. And for Joe Walsh, the congressman, to attack Tammy Duckworth, a woman who's devoted her life to our country and her fellow veterans, working for the Veterans Affairs Office in Illinois and in Washington, for veterans all over our country, for him to attack her service, let me tell you something. Joe Walsh never served. He doesn't know what it's like to leave your friends, to leave your family, to go serve for months at a time in 130-degree heat. They don't know if you're ever going to see the people who you love again. He doesn't have the right to attack Tammy Duckworth's service. And let me tell you something else. He doesn't even have a right now to vote as a congressman on veterans issues because he has no idea what it's about. He is a disgrace. He's an absolute disgrace.
Late this afternoon, Duckworth appeared on Martin Bashir's program here on MSNBC, and here was her response to Walsh.
I think that, he's just irresponsible in his words and he's irresponsible in his actions. He's trying to distract the constituents from the fact that he has time and again done nothing for the district. In fact, anyone who's worn the uniform of this great nation for a single day has done more for their nation than Joe Walsh has ever done. If there's anything about my service to this nation, is the fact that I've lived an entire lifetime living up to my responsibilities, just like our military men and women and their families do every single day. They live up to their responsibilities. Mr. Walsh has never lived up to his responsibilities. Certainly he hasn't done it in Congress. And, you know, for him to bring Senator McCain into this, Senator McCain is a great American, one that I respect greatly. And it's too bad that he's, again, trying to muddy the waters and keep people away from the fact that he's done nothing to the good and for the benefit of the people in the district.
One other element, in a statement to NBC News, Congressman Walsh said in part, quote, "Of course, Tammy Duckworth is a hero. I've called her a hero hundreds of times in the past 4 months. Just like every man and woman who has worn the uniform, her service demands our utmost respect. That's why I recognize our veterans at the beginning of every one of my public town halls. However, unlike most veterans I have had the honor to meet since my election to Congress, who rarely, if ever, talk about their service or the combat they've seen, that is darn near all of what Tammy Duckworth talks about. Her service demands our thanks and our respect, but not our vote." Patrick Murphy, question for you. You're the first Iraq veteran to be elected to the Congress. How do you balance? How do you know when you've spoken enough but not excessively about your war service when running for office? Because you confronted that.
Sure. Listen, I know Tammy Duckworth. I know Colonel Duckworth as a friend and as a leader.
That's her husband?
What she went through Colonel Duckworth, Tammy Duckworth is a lieutenant colonel.
I know that her husband served as well. That's why I ask.
He's a major, so she outranks her husband.
Okay.
But the fact is this, is that 7.5 years ago, she went through a very traumatic experience, which changed her life. And she's trying to use that horrible chapter in her life to make it better for other veterans, the other 1% of our nation who've worn the cloth of our country in Iraq or Afghanistan. Now, as a candidate, of course, she's going to have to talk about it a little bit. But I know Tammy. I have seen her on the stump. I have seen her in front of crowds. And she actually downplays her service to our country, her heroic service to our country. So for Joe Walsh to try and bring in people like John McCain, and let me tell you something, the difference here is that when people attack John McCain, like myself, I have a Facebook page, someone wrote a comment that attacked John McCain. John McCain's an American hero. No one ever questioned his service. For people like Joe Walsh to question Tammy Duckworth or anyone who put their lives in harm's way, and he has attacked her service multiple times. This isn't just something that just happened. It's a disgrace. And that's why Jon Soltz and I and so many other veterans, Democrats and Republicans across our country, are calling for Joe Walsh to resign from Congress. That's how egregious what he's doing is.
Mr. Soltz, it seems to me that military service used to be sacrosanct, used to be one of those issues that you wouldn't dare be critical. Why? How could you of someone for having served? You look at John Kerry and the whole Swift boat issue. You look at Max Cleland and what went on in that case. You now look at what's going on with Ms. Duckworth, and you wonder if there's a pattern to all of it. What do you see when you put it all together?
Well, when we spend money all over the country helping Iraq and Afghanistan veterans run for office, it's the strongest positives they have. I mean, it moves voters. And so what these Republican candidates like to do, they like to try to tear it down. And it hurts most with Tammy. I mean, like, it devastates me. I mean, Patrick's right in a sense of who she really is when you know her. I mean, I know Tammy well. She's one of my closest friends. Her husband called me today. John, are you going to do this? Are you going to help her? Of course. Like, you don't have to call me and ask. I mean, Tammy's going to downplay it. She's very calm, cool, and collective on TV about it. You know, I'm a jerk. Like, I'll go after people. You know, I'll defend Tammy with anything. And I think Joe Walsh is an absolute travesty to our country. I mean, I'm appalled by him. I mean, this is a woman. Look, I went back to Iraq last year. VoteVets has got hundreds of thousands of members. We raised millions of dollars. And when it came down to that, you know, one of those decisive moments in my life, there's a few people I talked to about whether or not I should go back to Iraq because I didn't agree with the war. And, you know, you talk to General Clark, you talk to Tammy Duckworth, and Patrick hit on this. Tammy Duckworth's a hero for what she's done when she's come home. I mean, who am I not to go back to Iraq when you have a woman who has no legs who is willing to go back to Iraq?
Well
she
said.
Goes to drill every weekend, every weekend, 1 weekend a month for her country. And this is a woman, you know, who, you know, my father died last year when I was in Iraq, and I came home on leave, and I went to talk to Tammy, and I was feeling bad about myself. And, you know, Tammy came home from Iraq, she lost her legs, and then her father had a heart attack visiting her and passed away. And she's always a woman that I look at when I want to figure out how do I become a better military officer? How do I find strength in my life? And for him to attack this, you know, and it's so below anything that's within reason. It's ridiculous because it's what she's done because of her tragedy. I mean, I don't know what he wants her to do to not talk about being a veteran. She doesn't talk about it. Does he want her to reattach her legs? She can't do that. They're on some field somewhere near Taji.
Thank you for your service. Patrick Murphy, thank you for your service. Happy 4th, gentlemen. We appreciate you being here.